In January of 1920, the American government conducted one of the most frightening social experiments in modern history, the ban of alcohol. The prohibition was supposed to solve all crime, violence, and poverty that was plaguing the nation. It turns out Americans were determined to get their hand on the bottle, legal or not. An idea that was meant to cleanse the United States instead gave way to an era of smuggling, speakeasies, and gangsters. The Prohibition was America's biggest backfire. I'm Jake Storielli, Kennedy Jr., and this is Laughs from the Past.
What's up, everybody? We are back. Laughs from the Past, Season 5, Episode 9. Let's do it. It's historical backfires. We took the week off because we were busy, but we played the Rockefeller episode. I had some people reach out. They were like, whoa, that Rockefeller story is crazy. I listened back to it, and I was like, yeah, that was nuts. Anyway, I'm excited for this one. Intern Luke put this one in here, wrote Jake's little opening spiel there, which maybe I'll put the bloopers at the end of the episode because that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it lined up perfectly for my old-time baseball announcer voice, which I won't say I take pride in, but it's usually there. Fly ball down the left-hand line. He's got a chance. I don't know. He makes a grab. And then it just turned into a straight Kennedy voice. It turns out Americans were determined to get their hands on the bottle.
Legal or not. Legal or not. It's cracking us up.
So that was pretty bizarre, but not as bizarre as Prohibition itself, Jim. Back to you.
Yeah. If you're a new listener to Laughs from the Past, thank you for joining us. Basically, I'm a history major, so I love this stuff. Jake is usually hearing this stuff for the first time. How much do you know about like Prohibition and all that? Do you know how long it lasted? Do you know the years it started and ended? I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No, you're doing great. I would have guessed 20s even before reading that paragraph that mentioned the 20s. I guess I couldn't tell you if it was 2 years or 10 years. I'm going to split the gap and say 4 or 5. But yeah, I mean, I just know that it was, I mean, it's basically the number one example in my head. If you take something away, like people want it more.
Yeah, for sure. It was 13 years.
I mean, that's nuts.
Basically went till World War II, and then it was like, all right, we need to fucking drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was about to end, and then World War II comes around, and they're like, yeah, this is stupid anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's a big backfire. I mean, the stats are all there. I'm excited to get into it. We got a couple articles to talk about. The temperance movement is what it was called, Jake. And it was the temperance movement. It started with women, I believe. But then, yeah, I mean, I guess they just wanted people not to be drunk anymore.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of get it. I mean, if you've ever seen anyone be real drunk or you've seen a video of yourself be real drunk the next day, you're like, I mean, that's not a good thing.
No, especially if people are like drunk out and about. Oh, this is so speaking out of turn. I was like, I think people didn't like get drunk and sit on their couch and watch TV back in 1917. They probably got drunk and then annoyed the hell out of everyone they could find.
Yeah, that's true. Or I mean, even worse than annoyed, because you said, did women start the temperance movement? Is that what we're saying?
It might be sexist of me. I thought I remember learning that in one of my classes, that it was started by women who wanted their husbands to stop drinking.
Right, and I mean, I went to a darker place, but I mean, drinking normally leads to abuse and stuff like that, which, I mean, it would add up. We have no idea if that's currently true, but yeah, you're right. That's a really good point. It's not like, hey, let's have some drinks and watch the Super Bowl. That wasn't an option. It was like, I'm sad, let's drink.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's get it right into it. We got an article here from PBS. Ken Burns did a documentary on Prohibition, which is where Maybe
Your
maybe that's
guy.
where I'm remembering. Oh yeah, I love Ken Burns. Well, I'm seeing now they have like a shop PBS on this website where you can get like Ken Burns like T-shirts. I hate that. I almost want to be a guy that rocks Ken Burns documentary T-shirts.
Right.
But it's kind of like you do that, people call you a hipster, and it's like, well, I genuinely like whatever. You know what I mean? Just tough.
Yeah, you're in a real tough catch 22 there of hipster people that would like that, and then the actual people that would like that. I mean, no offense, but I think you'd stumble into some people you might not want to chat with. I think you'd be surprised.
I'm a Ken Burns enthusiast, though.
That's good.
Big time. All right. Well, this says it was a noble experiment. When the Prohibition era in the United States began on January 19th, 1920, a few sage observers predicted it would not go well. Certainly, previous attempts to outlaw the use of alcohol in American history had fared poorly. When a Massachusetts town banned the sale of alcohol in 1844, an enterprising tavern owner took to charging patrons for the price of seeing a striped pig. The drinks came free with the price of admission. They still do that shit in Boston. They're not allowed to have happy hours in Boston currently, so they'll have a dollar Bud Lights, and then as soon as happy hour like ends, they're like, oh, that's tapped, we're out, and then you have to pay full price for it. Like they still play those games.
Yeah, there's other ways to dance around it. It's get a beer with some chips and stuff like that. But yeah, there's in the whole Northeast, and this that wasn't a joke. Like Boston, you can't legally have happy hours. There's all these sorts of blue light early settler rules that they just never got rid of. And
yeah, blue laws
still
they're
there.
called. They're all over. I think Indiana has some weird blue laws too. But anyway. When Maine passed a strict prohibition law in 1851, the result was not temperance, but resentment among the city's working class and Irish immigrant population. A deadly riot in Portland in 1855 led to the law's repeal. Now, prohibition was being implemented on a national scale and being enshrined in the Constitution, no less. What followed was a litany of unintended consequences. This should have come as no surprise with a venture as experimental as Prohibition. It is no mistake that President Herbert Hoover's 1928 description of Prohibition as a great social and economic experiment, noble in motive and far-reaching in purpose, entered the popular lexicon as the noble experiment. It was unfortunate for the entire nation that the experiment failed as miserably as it did. That's kind of cool. I didn't realize that was kind of its nickname. Oh, it's the noble experiment.
Yeah, I wonder, did that come before or after, during?
Says it's from his 1928 speech, so during. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I can't drink because of the noble experiment. How noble.
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds like... So what year did it start? Did I miss that?
1920.
Okay, so I mean 28, we're 8 years in.
8 years in, yeah.
I think people are pretty miserable, and I think the president was trying to save it with like a cool line. He's like,
yeah,
guys, it's the noble experiment.
Oh, I think it's great
And
fodder for the drunks. Like they're cheersing to the noble experiment in the speakeasies.
Right. Oh, they're laughing at it.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, it's a good time.
Okay.
To the noble experiment.
Okay.
And then
Didn't know what degree you liked it to. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's being mocked.
Yes, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Economics of the Prohibition. Prohibition supporters were initially surprised by what did not come to pass during the dry era. When the law went into full effect, they expected sales of clothing and household goods to skyrocket. Real estate developers and landlords expected returns to rise as saloons closed and neighborhoods improved. Chewing gum, grape juice, and soft drink companies all expected growth. Theater producers expected new crowds as Americans looked for new ways to entertain themselves without alcohol. None of it came to pass. That's so stupid when you think of it.
Yeah.
Just like, how do you entice people to do stuff now? Alcohol, really. Like,
kinda, yeah.
The movie theater industry was going dead. What'd they turn to? You can buy beer and you can have drinks while you watch the movies now.
Yep.
Right? Like
experience.
restaurants that don't have a liquor license, they'd make it BYOB. Like it's always been the pull. So why would you think you would flourish without it? Dumb.
Yeah, I mean it's a part of society. I mean, and it's kind of funny. I mean, you think even like a place, the first place that jumped to mind was like Chipotle. I mean they serve booze. I don't know. They should be a to-go Mexican restaurant. But I'm sure they clear millions and millions on people getting bad margs and cheap beers.
It's crazy. It's just funny to think that they were like, yeah, now everyone's going to be productive without alcohol. And then they come and it's like, oh, wow, you guys really liked that stuff, huh?
Yeah, and the image I do like right now is there's some revolutionary economics nerd that was like, I've got this figured out. We're going to get all the money that gets put into booze. And I mean, we are going to flourish as a society. Nope. No, thank you.
You don't think they're going to just use that money and buy booze that doesn't help the economy?
Yeah.
Like they didn't even think of that? What idiots. Anyway. Instead, the unintended consequences proved to be a decline in amusement and entertainment industries across the board. Come on. Restaurants failed as they could no longer make a profit without legal liquor sales. Theater revenues declined rather than increase, and a few of the other economic benefits that had been predicted came to pass. Like, I'm not dependent on beer to have a good time anymore. I was for like a while of my youth and younger life. Like, imagine going to a sporting event and it's not part of it.
I'm saying, and that's where I mean, I'd counter back. Like it's, and like you say, not dependent, but I mean, still, if you go to a Yankees game or something, I mean, it would be freaking weird if there was no booze.
Yeah,
there's my Kennedy coming out again.
On the whole, the initial economic effects of Prohibition were largely negative. The closing of breweries, distilleries, and saloons led to the elimination of thousands of jobs, and in turn, thousands more jobs were eliminated for barrel makers, truckers, waiters, and other related trades. I'd never even thought about that, really, to be honest. It seems obvious. I didn't think about it. Like, how many jobs are tied to that industry? It's a huge, huge industry.
One of the biggest.
Jeez. The unintended economic consequences of Prohibition didn't even stop there, Jake. One of the most profound effects of Prohibition was on government tax revenues. Before Prohibition, many states relied heavily on excise taxes and liquor sales to fund their budgets. In New York, almost 75% of the state's revenue was derived from liquor taxes. With Prohibition in effect, that revenue was immediately lost. And the national level, Prohibition cost the federal government a total of $11 billion in lost tax revenue, while costing over $300 million to enforce. The most lasting consequence was that many states and the federal government would come to rely on income tax revenue to fund their budgets going forward. This is where my brain's going right now. I wonder how many people listening are thinking this along. All these numbers to me scream, why did it take 100 years to legalize marijuana?
I mean, that's what I was going to jump back to before, Jim. You said, you know, like why and everything around the industry and, you know, why. I think the phrase you said a minute or two ago was, yeah, and why have this be taxed and go to the people or whatever, or people just buy it, you know, underground behind the scenes. And that's still going on in most states with marijuana.
It's crazy. You get so much money.
We're going to look back at it the same way we talk about Prohibition. People will probably label it like a weed prohibition, especially when the numbers keep rolling in, man. I live in Denver, and there's something anywhere between 500. I've heard a lot of different numbers, but I want to say that just taxing weed has brought in like over $500 million.
All out of your pocket, you fucking stoner head.
Well, I'm still selling it illegally too, so yeah. I'm losing money on both ends.
You're doubling up.
I'm buying and selling at a loss. It sucks.
People have been calling you, hey, gummy weed guy.
Hey,
Jake Gummies.
Gummy body guy.
Gummy body. All right. Prohibition. So there, economically, before even all the illegal stuff happened, before speakeasies were created, before that whole sub-industry took off, it was a failure, even if that stuff didn't happen. It's just a failure. But Prohibition led to many more unintended consequences because of the cat and mouse nature of the enforcement. While the 18th Amendment prohibited the manufacture, sale, and transportation of intoxicating beverages, it did not outlaw the possession or consumption of alcohol in the United States. The Volstead Act, the federal law that provided for the enforcement of prohibition, also left enough loopholes and quirks that it opened the door to myriad schemes to evade the dry mandate. One of the legal exceptions to the prohibition law was that pharmacists were allowed to dispense whiskey by prescription for a number of ailments, ranging from anxiety to influenza. Bootleggers quickly discovered that running a pharmacy was a perfect front for their trade. As a result, the number of registered pharmacists in New York State tripled during Prohibition era. Tripled. That's great for the pharmaceutical industry. They benefited.
Another direct parallel to marijuana, which took another 90 years to get to.
Yeah. It's good. Do you think a lot of the pharmacists were like mad? Like, finally, people want to be pharmacists and this is a cool trade. And they're like, no, man, no. We just want to sell booze.
The only winner in the story right now is whoever gets paid off of giving out pharmaceutical certificates.
Yeah, the pharmacists that were like real pharmacists that were just living and they heard prohibition, they were like, let's go.
Yeah, their business was good.
Everything
else, terrible.
So many people coming in and like, I need booze. Why? I'm sad. Okay. Here's a depressant. Get more sad.
It's the 1920s.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sad because they made it illegal. Okay, well, here you go. Drink up. Because Americans were also allowed to obtain wine for religious purposes, enrollments rose at churches and synagogues, and cities saw a large increase in the number of self-professed rabbis who could obtain wine for their congregations. Wow, so now you got religion jumping up. Great.
Yeah.
It was a wonder. Would you rather go become a rabbi or a pharmacist? If it was you.
Pharmacist.
Why, you don't want to bite little boys' penises?
I'd have to go and repent for a lot, and I don't know. I don't need another. The Jewish church let me go a long time ago.
All right, what about a regular priest? You get to eat a lot of bread.
Yeah. And then, that's the thing. I'm low carb now, and that church let me go a long time ago too. So,
the law was unclear when it came to Americans making wine at home. With a wink and a nod, the American grape industry began selling kits of juice concentrate with warnings not to leave them sitting too long or else they would ferment and turn into wine. Do you ever seen those pictures of that? It's like, it looks like a bar of soap, but it's wine, or it's grapes, but it's like the bar of soap, and it says like, warning, don't leave this in your bathtub for too long. It will ferment and turn into alcohol.
Smart.
So the grape industry is booming.
It's marketing.
It's probably
marketing
not booming.
101.
It's probably not booming because they're probably selling a lot more when they were selling to distilleries and stuff. But they're having fun with it.
Yeah, you could upcharge it. Maybe you're making higher margins now.
Homes still were technically illegal, but Americans found they could purchase them at many hardware stores. While instructions for distilling could be found in public libraries and pamphlets issued by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the law that was meant to stop Americans from drinking was instead turning many of them into experts on how to make booze. I'm trying to picture you turning a bar of grapes into wine in your bathtub.
When it happened, I just eat the grapes.
It's cracking me up. Bathe in the wine.
It's not working. Wouldn't stay long enough.
There had to be some gross wine out there.
It was also gross. That's I think it's a funny thing when you're so you first start drinking alcohol, it tastes like butt. You drink enough alcohol, you get used to it, you kind of like it. Then you hit this new stage where you're like, yo, imagine if alcohol tasted good, like actually good, like you just wanted, like, after dinner, I would love to have this beer. And then you kind of get into that state, but it's still not great. But what if like booze actually tasted good one day? Think about the trajectory we're on. 1920s alcohol must have tasted disgusting.
Well, especially when it's being made by pharmacists and rabbis in bathtubs.
Exactly. And now where we are today, I mean, you get some good stuff, you get some bad stuff. I don't know. I guess 200 years from now, there might be... I think there will be a lapse from the future when they make actually delicious booze and people just start dying.
Yeah, but it's also very required because I think I'd prefer old school whiskey over anything new because now it's all sugary and flavored and stuff like that.
Right. I mean, I think the stuff you're referencing, that's not even like a whiskey. That's like a malt booze.
Yeah.
I don't know. There is the acquired part, but I'm talking like future. Like you just take a pill and you get drunk and it's delicious.
Wow, that's scary.
Right?
Scares me. Pills are crazy. Yeah. Well, anyway, this says the trade in unregulated alcohol had serious consequences for public health. You don't say. As it became more lucrative, the quality of alcohol on the black market declined. On average, 1,000 Americans died every year during the Prohibition from the effects of drinking tainted liquor.
Sounds like the drug market. Not marijuana, but like the other stuff.
Seems bad.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's serious articles, and I mean, I don't know enough about it, but you know, if the government actually legalized and regulated MDMA and stuff like that, like, I mean, aren't we currently in a gray area with stuff like that? I mean, it's a slippery slope, but it's also a slippery slope right now because there's kids going to get it that are like, oh, I'll risk dying to try this.
Yeah. Would you have been drinking bathtub wine?
Oh, yeah. I still am.
Yeah. Okay. The greatest consequence of Prohibition, according to this article, the effects of Prohibition on law enforcement were also negative. The sums of money being exchanged during the dry era proved a corrupting influence in both the Federal Bureau of Prohibition. Wow. Do you think it was called the FBP?
Yeah.
Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, Federal Bureau of Prohibition, FBP. Doesn't flow. And at the
I think
state,
it's maybe they went FBOP.
Funny.
Flows a lot better.
F-bop. Sounds like just kids bop in my head. At the state, police officers and prohibition agents alike were frequently tempted by bribes or the lucrative opportunity to go into bootlegging themselves. Many stayed honest, but enough succumbed to the temptation that the stereotype of the corrupt prohibition agent or local cop undermined public trust in law enforcement for the duration of the era. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no brainer.
The growth of the illegal liquor trade under Prohibition made criminals of millions of Americans. Well, I mean, that's like obviously, right? If we were to take something that 80% of the country does on a weekly basis, you would say. Would you think that's fair? 70% does it on a weekly basis?
I have no idea. I'm not good with numbers like that.
I think it would be somewhat fair to say of the adult population. And you take something they do at least once a month, and now it's illegal. Of course you just turned the entire population into criminals.
Basically. Or rabbis.
Yeah, or rabbis, yeah. But they were talking about real criminals here. As the decade progressed, courtrooms and jails overflowed, and the legal system failed to keep up. Many defendants in prohibition cases waited over a year to be brought to trial. As the backlog of cases increased, the judicial system turned to the plea bargain to clear hundreds of cases at a time, making it a common practice in American jurisprudence for the first time. They'd be like, all right, you're all good.
That's pretty cool, and I mean, it's where this story is going, but like, again, the things that didn't get thought about this are incredible because you, like, talk about empowering mafia and mobs and stuff like that. Like, you gave them ammo. Yeah. You gave them something everybody wants. Like, that's unbelievable. That's shocking. Like, I get the economy stuff. Like, hey, people stop spending money on booze, they'll spend it elsewhere. I kind of get that. Like, that seems like the number one, like, oh, wait, there's already these crime groups out there that they can use this as their number one operation.
Yeah. They make a lot of money. Capone. Dude, do you think it was fun? Like, Katie and I went to the city the other week, and we did this tour of Greenwich Village, and one spot on the tour was a speakeasy that opened up. It's still a bar today. It's called Chumley's in Greenwich Village. And it's like there was a back entrance. They say it's where the term 86 comes from. I don't know if that's real, but the back exit was 86. And when the Prohibition agents would come in, they said they would yell 86 at 86, and everyone would run out the back and like get out of there. And we went there, and it's like this nice little spot. I had a glass of whiskey, and it's this little cool thing. Like speakeasies, hiding. There's a part of like drinking's more fun when you're not 21 yet because you're doing something cool and you're being sneaky, and the consequences aren't that great. And this seems a lot like that. Like you would just fucking get a ticket, and then you'd get a plea bargain because everyone got tickets. Seems like it was probably a blast. It was the flapper decade. It was like glitz and glamour and jazz and speakeasies. Like, sounds like it was awesome.
Yeah, I think if you hit this right, if you were, so let's say you turned, what was the drinking age when it was legal? 18 in 1920, something like that?
If they even enforced it.
Right, that's a good point. But yeah, I don't know. I think if there was a drinking age, 16, 18, whatever it was,
like
and
you
then
didn't have like an
1920
ID in 1917 that said your age on it.
Right. And then in 1920 they make it illegal. You ride that out a little bit more cuz like you're saying, when you turn 21, a little bit of that luster goes away. A little of that you're doing something you shouldn't be doing goes away. So yeah, I mean, there might have been a generation there that got another 14-year real boost from drinking.
My Nana was born in 1911. So from 9 to 22, her age, she has a picture of her as a flapper in the 20s when she was a teenager, or late teenager, early 20s. She loves it. I think she missed it. I think you wanted to be in 1920 when it went into effect. You wanted to be 15, and then you wanted to be 28 by the time it ended. And that's the sweet spot for enjoying Prohibition. You're not like old enough to really get into like the shenanigans of the dirtiness of the world, but you're young enough to like just go have a fucking blast at these speakeasies and these bars, hiding and growing up and drinking in this age. And then when you become an adult and you start having kids and stuff, it's legal again, and you're done with partying anyway. So it's like, okay, now I'll go back to being normal. That's the honey spot.
Then you're just drinking to drink and get riled up post depression.
Or you go fight the war.
Yeah, there you go.
Wow. So you got to be born in 1905. Best year to be born.
That's what they say.
That's what they always say. There's some stats here that say, this is one that was interesting. It was that a number of observers in Prohibition noted that the potency of alcohol products rose. So not only did producers and consumers switch to stronger alcoholic beverages from beer to wine or beer to whiskey, but producers supplied stronger forms of particular beverages such as fortified wine. The typical beer, wine, or whiskey contained a higher percentage of alcohol by volume during Prohibition than it did before or after. For example, the White Mule whiskey, a name that clearly indicates that the product had quite a kick. Most estimates place the potency of Prohibition-era products at 150% of the potency of products produced either before or after. And there's a chart here, and like in 1922, the total expenditure on distilled spirits just rises, and then as soon as it's appealed, it drops. So, because without legislature to like govern the amount of alcohol that's allowed, these people were like, fuck it. Let's just like Everclear times 2. Let's fucking get drunk.
Yeah. I mean, picture your hipster friend who's wearing that Ken Burns shirt. Picture them talking about this IPA I had the other day is actually 18%. They'll only serve it to you in 6 ounces. I mean, picture Prohibition. It's the hunt for booze, right? I mean, we talked about all the different methods. So the multiplier of that is the strength of the booze. Like, yo, dude, there's this place. They got booze. It's 300%. You'll go blind. Yes.
Temporarily. Then you'll be able to see again.
Maybe.
You ever had like moonshine?
I've had a little bit of moonshine.
It's real sweet. Remember,
did you have our buddy Ed? His like uncle makes a batch every year. It's like really good. It was like cinnamon.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I mean, it's like white whiskey. Sometimes there's white whiskey now because it takes 10 years to properly age whiskey. So when new companies, they're like, we want to make a whiskey. What they do is they make a whole bunch and then sit majority of it for 10 years, but they need to make a profit in the meantime. So they'll sell like, this is our white whiskey, and it's real sweet, and it's their moonshine, basically. Yeah. Cinnamon moonshine, I never had that.
It's good.
It's good. Tens of thousands of people died because of Prohibition. Violence, terrible liquor. In 1933, the 21st Amendment was ratified by 36 of the 48 states. Was because they just couldn't enforce it anymore. And it was the biggest backfire to ever backfire, probably.
Power in numbers.
Yeah. So what do you think you would have done? Do you think you would have gotten into the bootlegging business? Do you think you would have just like found your local speakeasy and just become an entertainer there? You think you would have built your own liquor? Like, I know that you wouldn't have made your own liquor and that you wouldn't have been a rabbi. I think you're getting a gig or like you're finding a speakeasy and becoming like the speakeasy dancer.
Yeah, speakeasy dancers up there. You know, can I croon? Absolutely. You know, cover some songs. Yeah, I don't know. I have a guy. I mean, that's how I operate through life. I got a guy. So, you know, it'd be like our buddy Ken. Ken would give me booze. Yeah, or I don't know. I mean, you probably get the whiskey pharmacy prescription sounds super easy.
Yeah.
Like that seems kind of like a no-brainer.
But that's regulated. So if you want to get the fucking good stuff, you got to go to the guy in the corner.
I mean, I've got a bar. I've got to go dance somewhere. I've got to dance with these flapper girls. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I hear you. So, 21st Amendment it was the 19th Amendment, and then the 21st was like, fuck that amendment. I think that's what it says. It says, we done fucked
verbatim. We screwed up. Why did it take so long? Like, they just thought it would come back around and it never did?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Right?
Like, I wonder, because it had to be a failure from the jump.
I mean, that's what it sounded like. It sounded like millions. Like, I'm picturing the first 3 months, like they've started operating this. That finance geek that I mentioned at the beginning of the story, he's like, let me see the numbers. I'm sure we're doing great. And it's like, oh no, society's basically crashing because of your decision.
Yeah. And we're about to go under a depression and a war, so why don't you shut up? There's an article here that says why it lasted so long, but I have to pay to read it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of politicians that were arguing that it was not the main cause for rise in gangsters and their participation in organized crime.
Those were the ones getting paid by the gangsters.
That's probably why it lasted so long, to be honest. Because the people then that were making money off Prohibition were the people that were involved in the alcohol. And there was a lot of people that were probably getting paid off. They were like, fuck, if this ends, the government gets the money and I don't get the money.
Yeah.
That's just another layer to how stupid this was.
Yeah, probably got some rich gangsters and some rich politicians out of it, so it was good.
Al Capone used to have a summer house in Lake Zurich where I lived.
It's nice.
You got any words on that? No. Who's your favorite 1920s gangster?
Lou.
Lou? He's a good one.
Not many people know about him.
Lucky Luciano.
Lou kind of flew under the radar.
I think you'd be an Arthur Rothstein guy. He put in the fix for the 1919 White Sox scandal.
That's everything I'm against.
Okay. Al Capone?
I don't support those guys, Jimmy. They're troublemakers. Hey, Margaret, let's head to the speakeasy tonight and dance a little bit.
You would have liked Al Capone. Like, you like Al Capone's entire look.
I mean, what are we talking? Greasy 20s mobster? Yeah, there's
some good pictures of Al Capone. There's one that you'd really like. And he had scars all over his face, so that's cool.
There's, they call him Scarface.
Dude, Google Al Capone Alcatraz picture, and you'll be so creeped out. It looks like a creepy drawing.
Okay.
Please, I need to see your reaction. Google it, and there's like one that's in color. Everyone go do this at home.
I see it with the lips look pretty weird. He looks like what's that game where you guess the people like you can't see?
Guess Who?
Yeah, he looks like a Guess Who character.
It looks like those Spanish artists where they're like weirdly shaped humans, like super fat with small heads and stuff like that. But anyway, bad look for Al Capone. Alcatraz didn't do him good.
Prohibition
lost a lot of weight though. Prohibition was awesome for him, and he basically invented the soup kitchen because he was giving back to the poor so much. I read something today about this musician during Prohibition era. Fatty, what's his jazz musician? Not Fats Domino. It wasn't Fats Domino. It was like Fats Weller or something like that. He got kidnapped. Fats Waller. He got kidnapped by gangsters, and they brought him to Al Capone's surprise party, and he played all night for them, and he made like the most money he's ever made, but he was technically held against his will to play.
That's not bad.
That seems like an environment you would thrive
in. What character am I in that story?
You're a dancer.
Just performing for the mobsters?
Yeah.
I perform a little bit, and then I try to quip my way out of there. Like, I try to get involved. I dance a little better. A little bit of that moonshine.
Yeah.
They say, shut up, and they shoot me. Dead.
Okay, well, now you need to Google some Fats Waller pictures, because you're going to love what he's about.
Okay.
I got to listen to some of this music. He is got a giddy smile.
He is giddy smile, fun eyes. Good combo.
Yeah. Good combo. Yeah. Cool. He got kidnapped to play music for Al Capone. He got in trouble for not paying his taxes. And this ends the episode of Prohibition. Big backfire, right? Like, terrible backfire by the people running a country.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, how could it have gone worse?
How could it have gone worse? I don't know, man.
Right?
Someone reach out. How could it gone worse? Like, an assassination of like the president?
Yeah, you could. I guess you just say like more riots and deaths and like I don't know, government takeovers and stuff. But
the fact that at the end you probably had some people who voted for it saying we need to get rid of this, and then you have people who didn't want it saying no, it's good, because they're now making money off it. That is how you know you truly just the biggest backfire.
Yeah, I'm picturing the I mean, think about the movie theater owner. No more booze? People are going to spend more money here? Yeah, perfect. 2 months in, they're begging to stop it. And it went on for 14 years.
It's so stupid. That thought process is so stupid that the entertainment industry is going to thrive without alcohol.
Well, I think the thought process, the A plus B, and something we've done, I think it's more relatable to historic times because we wonder, like, how smart are people actually back in the day? But I think a smart person said if they can't spend money on booze, they'll spend it elsewhere. Booze was just the wrong item to pick.
Yeah. Dumb. If Prohibition happened right now, would you kill yourself?
No.
Good. Thank God. All right. That ends the show. Thank you guys.
Ending.
Yeah, thank God. We dodged a bullet there. Thank you guys for listening, tuning in. We'll be back next week. Got a couple more episodes left of this season. See you guys.
In January of the year 1920, the American government conducted one of the most frightening social experiments in modern history, the ban of alcohol. The prohibition was supposed to solve all crime, violence, and even poverty that was plaguing the great nation. It turns out Americans were determined to get their hands on the bottle, legal or not.
You were going good.
Yeah, I kind of went from my broadcaster voice into like John F. Kennedy voice.
Legal or not?
Legal or not?
Yeah.
An idea was meant to cleanse the United States. Okay. Should I go from the top?
Yeah, start over.
Okay.
Legal or not?
Legal or not? Not in the Commonwealth. That's cool. I'm a Kennedy now. All right. In January of 1920, the American government conducted one of the most frightening social experiments in modern history, the ban of alcohol. The prohibition was supposed to solve all crime, violence.
You keep going into that. I think that's what you're doing now.
I think that's my accent now. So I think I just need to come to grips that it's going to end up there.
Yeah.
But I can't even start there if I want. Like, these series of words
Violence.
make me end up there. Solve all crime. All right.
Very Kennedy.
January. Wow. It's the first time I've ever had that comparison. All right. In January 1920, the American government conducted one of the most frightening social experiments in modern history, the ban of alcohol. The prohibition was supposed to solve all crime, violence, and poverty that was plaguing the great nation. Well, it turns out Americans were determined to get their hands on the bottle, legal or not. An idea was meant to cleanse the United States instead of
You hit that legal or not so good.
Legal or not?
Who knew you had such a good Kennedy?
Robert Costigan Jr. I mean, was Prohibition big in Boston? Because right now it's just an older Boston accent. It's okay.